Okay, this is usually the part of the broadcast where I talk into the microphone for about 10, 15 seconds, and then we see if the audio is maybe good or maybe shit. So, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Also, my name is Frank. Hello. And goodbye. But not goodbye for too long, just goodbye for like a couple minutes. Oh, whoa. Hello. My name is Frank, and I make games. It's kind of fun. It's fun most of the time. Um, and yeah, this is the beginning of the stream. This is where I usually talk about everything that has happened from the last time I was live to now. And we have a couple of things. We have a few things. The first is I attended like a rave light. It was like a concert rave. It was kind of small. It was at a nightclub. It was fun. It was good. It's loud. Honestly, one of the best shows I've been to in a while. It was pretty sick. And then I tried to do a bonfire with my friends, and all my friends were like, "Oh, sorry." I guess there was just shit going on this weekend. And then the bonfire got rained out, and so I just had a few friends over, got drunk and played Wii games, which I think is a classic Saturday night. It was good. And then I watched Princess Mononoke when I was a little, if you know what I mean. But it was a good movie. It's weird. I understand why people say maybe don't watch that movie. It's interesting. Yeah. So I guess other tiny little news. No streams next week. I'm gonna be gone all week. So I'm gonna try and stream today, tomorrow, and Friday, and we will see how much of that I actually do. And we gotta make them bangers because I'm not gonna be around for a week. So we have all that, and then yeah, I also posted a couple of shorts. One of which was on the Google layoffs, and it only got shown to like 6 people in the feed. Like usually, even if a YouTube short gets like tester views, you get like 400, and it got 5. So it interestingly, that and then the time I posted about the new YouTube layout being kind of ass, both of those shorts did not get impressions like at all. I'm not gonna say it's targeted or anything. I'm just gonna say maybe Google has something to prevent the spread of information that might be damaging to their reputation. So I haven't actually had the YouTube layout issue in a while, so it might actually be fixed. It might just be, they were testing it and whatever, they rolled it back. Okay, so that's pretty much all I got for like the personal hour. I always call it a personal hour, and then I talk through it in like 5 whole minutes. So I guess that brings up what we're doing today. So I'm gonna swap us over to the camera, not the camera, the screen. There we go. Oh my god, I know what I'm doing, I swear. Okay, now we got the pirate software set up. What are we doing today? So first and foremost, I actually went through and I got the character, oh that's a horrible P, to jump properly. So I'm going to show you guys what I was able to get working, And then I want to sort of implement a gravity system. And then if we have time, we'll handle volumes. If you don't like programming, this is going to be a terribly boring stream because it is going to be almost all programming. There's no like actual cool making shit today, unless you find a character controller very interesting. So this is basically a big ol' excuse for me to work on this for a couple hours, and yeah, hopefully it's a banger. Okay, so that's sort of what our plan is today. Let me actually show off what we've got. So we have this example scene. This is what we've been working in for a while. Coding stream. Yeah, it's it may be a little less hacker man, maybe a little more idiot man, but it's gonna be good. So we have our character controller, and previously we were able to jump, and now we can double jump. And we were having some issues, and I don't actually know if I have a video of this, but I can always roll back the code, and I can show this off. So it's okay. Is gonna have to reload everything, but I basically just rolled it back to before when we were having some issues. Let's reload it, and then I gotta build it really quick, which is gonna take like 4 seconds. Yeah, so effectively we're having an issue where if the non-server client, non-host client was, whoa, what is this? What is Unity Cloud and what? Okay, whatever. We have our build. I don't know why it opened the Unity Cloud thing. But effectively, if we had a server, which I'm going to drag off to the side, and this has a client. It's going over here. If we had a non-host client, so just someone playing the game who isn't the server, then when they jump the first time, it's normal. Feels normal. When we jump the second time, we have a jolt. And that is because we have a mismatch of what is allowed on our client and on the server. So the server knows that we can jump again, but the client doesn't. And so it automatically just sort of assumes that we can't and continues falling, which is why we get that jolt. Because we get information from the server that actually, hey, we did jump, and then it corrects itself. Alternatively, or I guess similarly, we have our server character, which I am now moving off screen, and it's a little less noticeable, but when this character jumps, we do get a little bit of that jolt. It's just not super smooth, where it's like here, if I was to swap these around, you can see that on the server, the jumps are super smooth. And so that was sort of what we were having issues with, and what was happening was on the local client, we were actually incrementing our jump count. So we're allowed 2 jumps. Every time we jump, we increment that count by 1. And we were incrementing that multiple times per jump, and that's because we were getting more information than maybe necessary. And it was just incrementing to 2, and then we would locally be like, well, we can't jump, so don't. And then the server would be like, no, actually, you did jump, and fix it. And so all we had to do was change how we increment that jump. And I can show that in a second. So if I pull this over and we look at our player pawn. So when we jump, oh God, everything is open. So where we handle jump, we actually now take in an isReplayed Boolean, and this is just in our predictive movement function. We have the ability to check if this is an input frame that has already happened. So are we replaying information? And if, as long as we are not replaying information, we will increment the jump count, and this way everything stays synced. We also then, on the server, take this jump count and we send that to everyone so that we make sure that even if it does get incorrectly set, we can correct that data. And that's sort of what I spent a good chunk of yesterday doing. I am ashamed of how long it took to debug that, but it's working now, and I could not be happier. So actually, let me show this working. Oh God, I'm trying to type something off screen. So now I'm gonna open 2 instances of this. Oh God, wait, how many? We need to close that one. So this one's gonna be our server, and we can double jump and everything looks fine. And now if we go to this guy, we start a client, we can double jump and everything looks fine. There's no jitter on that second jump. And then I'm gonna just really quickly tab back over here, and we don't have jitter when we spectate other players either. So those 2 things, correcting when we increment that counter and making sure that we get corrected information all the time, those solve that problem, and everything is working smoothly, which I think is good. That means that the first chunk of work on this is done. I actually in this sort of progression, I called this part 1, which is just, you know, can we move around? Is the character first person? Can we crouch? Can we jump? Can we double jump? And can we sprint? And so this is where I get to make the first video, and we have a commit ID, so I know where we're at. And then yeah. So that's where that's what I've been working on the past couple of days, and that's our jump. So today, the goal is to implement a gravity direction, which is malleable, that we can change, and then to implement some way of tracking volumes. Now, these are things like water or gravity zones that we are in, and we want to be able to manipulate the player's movement. I'm not 100% sure how I want to implement all of this, but I've done a little bit of work, at least on the volume side, and that is that we have a trigger component on the player, and this is just a collider which will allow things to pass into and out of it, and we just check when those collisions start, continue, and end. And then I have it just scanning really quick for a volume with a volume type. And even more importantly, if we go here, I added a pool. I put a pool in the map. Let's actually show this off. So when we enter this pool, you can see that we get a little message, swim, with its little int indicator. Yeah, so what the int indicator is going to be doesn't really matter just yet, but eventually I am going to try and optimize these structs, because ultimately, like, these are booleans, these are just on or off values. We can do this with either a 0 or a 1. It does not take much data to send this, and a bool in C# is, I think, 32 bits, so we can actually fit 32 of these in the size of one integer if we just do some bitwise manipulation. We are going to have to fit another one in just for dashing, but I think that's the last like actual movement input we're gonna have to implement, and then we'll have to keep track of what volumes we're in, because ultimately, like, if we have all of these types, we could be on a planet and in water, so we're gonna have to keep track of, like, are we in any of these at any given time, and then send that over the network. And the good thing is we're realistically only going to be in one water volume at a time, or one flying volume at a time. So we can take these indices and put those into an integer, and then bitwise get, hey, are we in it or not? We can effectively condense a lot of this data down that we are sending over the network. So that's not a today problem though. That is an optimization thing, and we haven't even built what we're going to be optimizing yet. So let's start with something that's maybe a little more pertinent, and that is gravity. So right now we have a gravity vector, which is just, its default is Earth gravity, so down with a magnitude of 9.81. And when we jump, we set our y velocity to this jump impulse. So ultimately, I think the only things that I need to change in order to implement all of this gravity stuff is that we have a gravity value here, which is our variable, so it has a start value, but we can change this, and we need to take this and actually change how we are adding something to our velocity. So instead of just adding up, right now we always add that direction. If we're on this sort of surface, we want to take that surface's up direction, and if we're say pointing down, I know that this is technically also a normal, but this would be our up direction, and that is the direction in which we want to add our jump velocity, rather than just being a hardcore the y-axis. So it realistically, it shouldn't be too hard. We just got to do a little bit of vector math, and yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. So the crazy part is I don't actually remember how to do this vector math, so I'm gonna conveniently look up. Actually, we have a direction, I believe. This is on the pawn. We have our root pivot. Let me think through this really quick. So if we have our prefab and we have our root. Now this is a mostly stationary object. The only axis it moves on is the y-axis. So the up direction is always going to stay the same. So we can take our root up, and that is our up vector, no matter what surface we're on. And then we can use that to add our jump impulse. So what we can do is we can vector 3, we'll call this jump vector, jump velocity equals root pivot dot up times jump impulse. And then if we debug.log that, we should just see right now it's going to be a vector that looks like 0 and then 6.5 and then 0, because right now the gravity is just up. Yeah, so 0, 6.5 and 0. Alternatively, what we can do is we can have another vector 3, and this is just going to be called our gravity direction, or jump velocity based on gravity is what I'm going to call it. This is just a temporary variable. Based on gravity equals gravity, it's going to be negative gravity times our jump impulse. And so now we can just take a look at these two vectors, and they should be the same. They should be the same. The only thing that will change is that if our gravity direction changes, so will that second one. So now when we start this, we can go get our console. And, ooh, wow. Okay, so what we want to do here, actually, negative gravity dot normalized, because root pivot dot up is going to be a vector that looks like 0, 1, 0. And if our gravity is 0, 9, it's negative 9.81, 0, then this is going to actually, it has the same directional information, it just has a larger magnitude, so we need to normalize it. Boom and boom. And now we have identical vectors. Okay. So that's neat. I'm actually curious to see. We're gonna have to do this live. We're gonna have to do it while it's playing. But I want to see what happens if we just change the gravity direction. Like if we put that there. You can see that we actually end up falling this way because that is our directional gravity. So we can reset that. And if we set this to 0 and maybe this to -5 and then we jump, what are our values? Yeah, so we actually then just change the direction. So I think it would probably be better to jump based on the direction of the gravity rather than the direction of the root, because we are actually going to need to change the rotation of the player overall. And the gravity is going to sort of be set and then just exist, and then it'll get changed. It's not going to be as fluid or as, it doesn't need to catch up. Whereas if we look at the root, then we're going to change the gravity instantaneously, and then the rotation of the player isn't going to instantaneously change because that would make people sick. And so the player's root pivot is going to have to catch up. So what we can do now is change this little call, or this little set. We can actually add our jump velocity based on the gravity. And actually, we can just make this one line. So it should be pretty simple. But ultimately, we've got to make sure that it still works and still feels appropriate. Because right now it is adding velocity rather than setting it. And I don't actually think that there's a way to set it according to a direction. And I'm going to do a quick Google search. Unity set vector according to direction. There's definitely set vector magnitude. I'll leave it like this. It honestly, it feels pretty normal. And now the fun part is, does it still work? So we got to build it and check if it still works over the network. Do clients have any issues? I don't think that they're going to. I think once we start changing gravities, they might. But then we just have to sync up exactly when those gravities change. So if we go here, we can start both of these guys. And that still feels pretty fluid. Because ultimately, we're not changing anything about the input, which is going to make things lag or not. And we're just changing functions. So there we go. Okay. So that is sort of an implementation of gravity. So I'm going to put like a check mark there, but I'm not going to underline it just to indicate that it's not like completely done. Ultimately, one of these volumes is going to be a gravity volume, and it's going to have to change this. And so we're going to have to change the rotation of the player, which is maybe not going to be so fun. But it is possible. We can do it, and it actually should be pretty easy to sync up because we already save up a rotation for our player. Okay, so now the fun part, where do we want to put, I mean, if we just, I'm gonna copy this pool and we're gonna put this, say, over here. I don't actually think we need stairs. Stairs, ramp. Oh, those are just the normal ones. Stairs, ramp. Boom, boom. We can just. What am I changing? I'm changing the wrong ones. Okay, it's this one. Boom. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna create the world's smallest anti-gravity area and put it over here. Let's actually size this box correctly. Okay. We can just bring that down like that. Okay. And now if we change the scaling of this, it won't be sort of out of whack. Okay. Okay. So that is our anti-gravity room. I'm going to just create a material that will differentiate it from water. We'll call this anti-grav, and I'll just make this like piss yellow. Grav room, and then we can change this to a gravity volume, and then let's just play around with that really quick. Hey, how's it going? I am currently working on a character controller because I thoroughly broke the the last one I was working on for my first-person sword combat game and sword fighting game. So we're basically rebuilding it from the ground up so that it actually works without any sort of jitter over the network. And it's going to take a while, but it's been a fun learning process. Today we're actually implementing some volumes, so ideally we get to a point where we can change the gravity that the player is using, and we give them the ability to have different movement modes, like swimming and flying and stuff like that. So yeah, we have our little gravity one, and every time we enter it, we get a little debug message. So that's kind of working. Now the fun part is we get to extend a class. It's sort of big brain stuff. I've already implemented it on the other character controller, so now it's sort of just slowly expanding what I have working. Or it breaks because I sort of did all of the work and then expected it to just work, and it was pretty broken. So we're just slowly unfurling it over time. Okay. So what I want to do is we have this base volume class, and I'm gonna just copy paste it. No. I just want to extend it so that way we can add some extra variables to each one and still have it be caught in this little call. So we're just getting the component of the thing that we collide with and checking if it has a predicted volume class. And so if we inherit from the predicted volume class, we can still find it. Okay. Let's call this a water volume. I'm going to call it a swim volume just in case. And we can extract from this. And then the only thing that I want to change is just that by default, I want this to set its base volume type to a swim one. Okay. And I'll come back to this one later, because the one I actually want to work on first is the gravity one. Hey, you know, web dev is alien to me, so everyone's got their little niche. And then we can just copy this, so it does the exact same thing, and we just change this to a gravity volume. Boom. Okay. Yeah. So this is just going to contain a vector, and we'll call this our gravity direction. And the default we will steal from our character controller. All right, and then that should honestly be enough. Realistically, the only reason that we're changing from using where is it, the parent class to this one is so that we can add extra variables. We're not going to really be doing anything other than that. So now we can change this gravity room, we can remove the predicted volume, and we can add the gravity volume, in which I want to change its gravity to just directly opposite. And then we can go to our pool, in which we have our actual water volume. Rather than calling this a gravity room, I'm going to call this a volume, just so that we stay at least a little consistent. And we can remove this and put that. Because with swimming, I'm going to want to be able to implement sort of like a burst out of the water, like there is in a lot of games that allow people to move quicker onto the land. It's just a little more satisfying. But yeah, so now we can run. I mean, I don't think we're going to need to change those anymore. We're going to need to run a switch statement. So if we switch based on, I take it back. Take a component, and then this is where we're going to want to look at our gravity volume. Then let's just look at the gravity. I'm not going to set it yet. I'm not going to set the player's gravity, but let's at least check gravity volume. And then let's get, oh, I know how to type. Can I copy this? That gravity direction. Alright, so now when we go in here, we should see a little debug message with our gravity volume direction vector. So we see that we actually get into the gravity zone, and then we get some fields from it. Okay. I'm gonna change sort of the structure of this. God, I've seen the word volume too many times, and now it looks weird. Okay, we'll just do this, and then if our gravity volume does not equal null, then we'll take that, and then we can have a similar setup to integrate our swim volume. Boom, boom. And then we can get rid of this debug log. Let's go. Okay. Ordering wise, I'm going to shift this around a little bit because the order that I wrote them down in the enum is sort of what I want to keep, just so that we know subconsciously what the indices are. And swim is a 0. So check for a swim volume, and then similarly check for a gravity volume. Okay. So all we've really changed is debug statements, so none of the actual behavior is going to change. And realistically, we're only going to have one volume on any given object. That's just sort of an assumption I'm going off of. So now gravity volume, we're good there. And when we enter a swimming volume, swim volume. Okay, cool. So what's next? Now we got to actually change the gravity, which is, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm gonna add a little. We don't need a whole new region for this. I'm gonna have a private. Sorry, my brain is thinking. I kind of actually do want a whole region for this. So if we just make a region for gravities, and I'll add one for planets right there, and the region. So the first thing we're gonna want is a private vector3, and this is just gonna be our previous gravity. That way, when we exit, we know what gravity to return to. And right now, that should equal this. And then we're gonna want a public function, so a void, which will say set gravity to a vector3. Let's make this actually a temporary gravity. That way we can just have something edit this variable and we never lose the value of this. So we'll set the gravity vector3 direction. It's not exactly a direction because it's a vector. So we're going to be using the whole thing. Save that. And then here we can just set our temp gravity to or just whatever gravity we passed in. We're going to need to actually set an equal sign. Super easy function. I'm actually going to make this an arrow function just to keep things neat. And now we can make a little a public boolean for is gravity altered, and this is just going to be is temp gravity equal to gravity. So now do we have, I don't think we actually have an update function, but in our base movement, I can just debug log. Altered gravity plus is gravity altered. There we go. And then here we get to just set, what is our, okay, we get to actually set our God, I'm blanking. We get to set our gravity vector. Wow, those were words. Do I work for some game company? I would love to, but no, I do not. Right now, I am technically unemployed. So, looking for work, but no, I do not work for a game company. Okay, so we get to actually just set our what's it called? Our gravity. How do we want to do this though? Is a good question. I think I want to keep my naive approach is to sort of just, because this component exists on the same on the same object as this, we can just instantly get a reference to it, which could work, and that's what I'm gonna try first. But it also could end up being quote unquote the death of us because it might not be in sync. So let's just try it. And I don't even want to save a reference to it yet. Get component player pawn dot set gravity, and this would just be our gravity volume dot gravity direction. And then we will see if our gravity is altered, because every time we move, we will get this. Okay. Altered gravity true. Huh. Oh, it's because I have it backwards. We want not equals. This is why we test. You've been applying since last week. I think I can one-up you on that. I've been applying since January. Sort of aimlessly, though. So it's not that big of a flex, and it's also maybe not a great reflection of the industry, because I think my applications have maybe not been as intentional as they could have been. What sort of companies are you applying to? All right. So now we have our move, and so we can actually just check if is gravity altered. Oh, we can just use a ternary. So we can have a vector 3, call it current gravity. Is gravity altered? And then we can just say, if gravity is altered, we want to use temp gravity, or we want to use our normal gravity. And I think we can even make this its own little function. And copy that over. There we go. And that way we can call this wherever. We don't have to copy it anywhere. So we can just replace that. And then for jumping, we can actually just replace gravity with our current gravity, and it should all be good. You're self-taught with no degree and no experience, targeting startups for now. Where you're from, layoffs are still on. Yeah, there's so many layoffs. So Google laid off 2 sets of developers last week. They had their Flutter and their Python teams nuked on like Tuesday, and then on Thursday they nuked a bunch of core people. I know Microsoft, the whole, like, I think it was some of the Bethesda subsidiaries got nuked, and like Tesla's games division got nuked, and it's kind of crazy. I think we're just sort of hitting the limit of where we can have that continuous growth. And companies are starting to try and find more and more drastic ways of improving their bottom line for the current quarter. And so we're just going to keep seeing layoffs until there's sort of either a stabilization of the economy where we can get back to that continuous growth target, which I don't think is very sustainable, or we see some sort of shift in terms of attitudes towards making money. But startups are, I think, a good way of circumventing that, because startups don't have that whole corporate bottom line thing. They're usually finding venture capital. So it definitely wouldn't hurt. I know there are a lot of companies where you don't need a degree. I don't know exactly what kind of jobs you can find there, but Google, at least, they don't require you to have a degree. They'll take anyone, self-taught, or otherwise. It would be beneficial to maybe get some certificates, but self-taught with a good portfolio is better than a college degree with nothing. So, and Tesla is another company that does the same thing. They sort of pride themselves on taking people who didn't necessarily go to college but are self-taught. You have an interview for Thursday? Well, fucking congrats. That's nice. Hopefully you're excited. Hopefully the job application. So hopefully the position is something that you're looking forward to. You're scared. I've had a couple of interviews in the last couple of months, and yeah, no, I spent the whole day shitting bricks beforehand. But as long as you didn't like lie on your resume, you should be fine. I would say my only advice is anything that you put on your resume, sort of have like a little sort of like a bullet point story for, and be prepared to explain any sort of technologies that you've told them that you know. So I don't have the greatest interview advice, but just be honest. There's always like discussion about trying to show confidence in an interview, and I think that's important, but ultimately I think if you're really worried about how you phrase things, you won't get the important information across. So, but it's completely normal to be shitting bricks. I've interviewed people before, and it's the same thing, just reversed, which is kind of weird, but it helped me realize that, like, okay, no one really wants to be doing the interview, but it is required to sort of figure out where people are at, educationally and all that. Where are we? Ooh, hey, you get a little flash of the Discord. I'm gonna put that on the side. Okay, so let's see. We change our gravities. I want to see, because realistically we're still going to be constrained to the ground, so it's not going to change. But if we jump, then we're good. Oh, we never set it on the way out, so our gravity is still upside down and we're going to keep falling this way. Well, that's cool. Okay, so we can do a couple of things. First, we can remove this debug statement that is running every frame. We don't need that. We know that our gravity is at least working, but on our way out, when we go here on collision exit, we're going to want to implement the same thing. And this is public, so we're going to want to set the gravity to player pawn dot gravity. Oh, I missed the whole that. Okay. I'm changing these debug statements to be in gravity volume, and then we go there and then out, and it should reset. Okay, so realistically, now so we'll enter it, and then now we're upside down. We're walking on the roof, which is fun, and we actually got to rotate our player, and then when we leave, we fall back down to earth. Okay, so there's two areas which are going to be interesting. We should, when we set this gravity, actually go here. This is going to need to be a multi-line thing now. Okay, because we're going to want to pause our ground constraint. And this is something that we do before we jump. It basically, if we're on a surface and we want to move along that surface, we have a ground constraint so that we don't leave that surface if forces get pushed up. Like if we're on a ramp, we stay as close to the ground as we possibly can. But in order to jump, we have to pause the ground constraint, and what this says is temporarily disable it to allow the character to fully leave the ground. Makes sense. So we're going to do that here. So save the gravity value and pause the ground constraint. Okay, and now the fun part is we get to test if there's a bunch of jitter or not once we build it, because ultimately we are testing something on just the server host, so it doesn't have to send any data or get any data verified. What it says goes. So there we go. That's in and that's out. Boom. And even like, look, our jump works. It doesn't get reset. interesting that it doesn't say that it's grounded. And I think the reason it doesn't say it's grounded is actually because it doesn't check if it's grounded based on its head. It checks based on the bottom of the character. But that's fine. We don't have to worry about jump just yet. We want to make sure that the actual transition between gravities is synced. So let's build it. Okay, so we have a server and we have a client. I'm going to just go on the client really quick because usually you can tell if there's a little bit of a stutter, and there kind of is, because if we look at this from the server's perspective, now let's go back. Boom. It follows gracefully and it goes up gracefully, but there is a little bit of a jitter here. So something that we might want to do is save a gravity in, or a temp gravity in our reconcile. So that's the first thing I want to do. Let me actually write down that we are getting some jitter. Is this some project I'm working on or just practicing the skills? So this is a project I'm working on. So the full thing, there's a quicker way of finding it. So I've been working for a while now, on and off for a couple of years on a project that I'm calling Castle Wars. It's a temporary name, but basically there was a Halo Reach game mode where there were two castles and a bridge between them, and you would fight with swords and play capture the flag. And so I'm trying to turn that into a whole game. God, where are the builds? Here are the builds. So this, it might be a little broken. We will see. Is the sort of live game. It's not live. It's just, this is like the main GitHub repo. Oh, we have a server open. Let's close all of those. There we go. So we have sword combat and some UI, a whole suite of movement stuff, which will work great because we're actually on the server right now. So we can sprint, we can walk, we can crouch, we can slide, we can dash, we can swim, we can climb. If we go over here, there's some teleporters. We can die and all of this stuff. There's moving platforms. There's flying, and honestly what's maybe more impressive is the man cannons, which shoot you, and then you can walk around planets, which I don't know how disorienting this is, but you know, I missed it. So basically I spent all of January and February implementing all of these movement mechanics, and like it works great if you're on the server, but if I was to set up another instance of this game and connect it to it, there would be so much jitter when you were changing like gravity directions or if you're flying or not, that I basically was like, okay, we need to go back down to the basic character controller and sort of rebuild that on its own. So yeah, it's fun. It's a personal project, for the record. I don't think I actually explicitly answered that, but this is just, it's a personal goal of mine. I've been making games for a while, so I think that it's finally time that I'd like start on something kind of large. So there we are. There's also a few maps I like. There's one where you actually get to walk around a planet, and it's a little barren right now. These are all like test maps. There's one where the gravity of the entire map changes every, I think it's 20 seconds, so we'll have to wait. But yeah, I've implemented a lot of systems into this, and the only thing really holding it back right now is that the movement code is a little jank. And so once I get the movement and the netcode sort of figured out, which is what I'm currently working on, there's our little gravity switch. Then I can like implement game modes, and minimum viable product is done. Yeah, so that's sort of what I've been working on. It's a personal project. I would love to make some money off of it, but I don't really expect to. I kind of expect that I'm just gonna work on it until it's done, put it on Steam. If the stream, or I make YouTube videos too, if any of those pop off, then that I'll consider like free marketing. But I'm not really like pushing any of that. I just intend on making cool shit I want to work on, and then going into industry. But it's a really great way of learning shit. Like, it's just fun. I get to like solve problems every day and figure out what things are breaking. My name is Frank. I'm not gonna give a last name. I don't feel like it. But my name is Frank, and I make games. Okay, so now we get to debug some jitter. Okay, so what I want to do is we're going to save the temporary gravity in our reconcile data, and so that way we can send it over the network, and then the server can correct any sort of jitter that we have. Vector 3 temp. I'm not even going to type out the whole thing, because this is such a long function call. There's every possible thing that we can possibly want in there. And that, of course, is going to break creating a reconcile data, which is fine. We get to steal that. And then in our reconcile, we get to layerpon.set gravity rd.temp gravity. There we go. Okay. If that is enough to fix it, we are off to the races. I really doubt it, but it'd be pretty cool. Because we sort of save our rotations and our velocities, so anything can get corrected by the server. But the harder part would then be syncing it up, syncing that actual instantaneous change up so that we don't have any jitter. Okay, so now we're on the client. Ooh. There's a considerable amount of movement lag now. That's weird. What do we have open here? Okay, we have those. Ooh. Okay. That's fun. I wonder why. I wonder what's going on there. Oh, what could be happening is that we are calling this all the time. Okay, hold on. So what's happening is every single reconcile frame, which is up to 60 times a second, is pausing our ground constraint. And so we're actually just sliding around, I think. But let's see. So if gravity is not equal, ooh, that's fun. I'm going to change the naming scheme here. Now we got to make sure it still works on the server. It should. And then we can test it. Now we can test both at the same time. Oh, I need a second instance. Okay. Okay, so on the server, if we enter a gravity zone, gravity changes. Otherwise, we're good. There's a little bit of you go up a little bit because we're still in that sort of collider region, Okay, so when we don't pause the ground constraint, our movement is back. We're good. Yeah. And then if we go in here, there is still a little bit of a jitter. It's like one frame, but you can sort of see it. That is going to be the bane of my existence probably for the next, I don't know how long. Okay. So what could be happening is that this only runs once. And ideally there's nothing in here that is not like a set or a yeah, it's not a set. Let's see if I can make this worse. If you can't see it, there we go. That was a jitter. I don't know how exactly they look on stream. It's very slight. That one actually looked pretty smooth. But there we go. Okay, hopefully that is a little more apparent. I'm like a little more trained to noticing it, because that's like been my entire goal for the last week, is noticing every little tiny bit of jitter and removing it. But yeah, I think what's happening is that these calls only run once. And so if they don't run in sync, client and server, then there's going to be a little bit of jitter, because that's a desync. And the jitter is actually the correction of the desynchronization. So it would be interesting. I'm just going to put a debug log here for, maybe not. We'll steal this. We'll steal this, because I don't want to run this on any time that we have a collider overlap. And that would include like the floor. I just want to check for these volumes. So debug.log, and we will. Maybe the most jank way of programming this. So let's just do volume2 dot volume type. We can close that one and that one. I just want to see how many times this whole network collision enter gets run, because this will only happen once. And I forget, there's like a distributed systems term for when you can call code multiple times in a row and the outcome does not change. But that's effectively what we have here. This is only called once, but ultimately if we're in a gravity volume, we set the gravity, and then if we set it again, it's going to be the same gravity that we already got from being in the gravity volume. So it doesn't really change any state information. So it would be okay to send multiple times. And so I just want to see how many times we get this called, because that could sync it up. Let's see. That only got called once. Okay. Let's build it. Okay, and then I want, for me, yeah, that's a lot of that. For me, it's like in front end when I make a button and I want to show the border. Okay, God, Twitch UI, please fix yourself. When clicked, but it slightly moves other elements with barely no. Yeah. Yeah, anytime I try and mess with front end stuff, it's like you have this like laundry list of tiny little details that you're like, okay, it needs to be like slightly better. But it's sort of, I feel like it's that attention to detail that makes it kind of fun. I would understand why someone would hate it. Yeah, but like every time you change the border or the margins, it fucks up the spacing for everything else. It's just annoying. Okay, so we're gonna put this off to the side because I just want to see how many times we call this predicted volume change. So that gets run pretty consistently. So our in gravity volume gets run multiple times, and our out gets run a couple of times. Yeah, this is on enter. I wonder what the difference between these two contexts is on post-physics simulation, on replicate replay. So yeah, some of these are coming from our physics simulation, and some of them are coming from gravity. It is interesting that this is running a bunch of times and not just on collision enter. Something that would actually be interesting to see if we have our client here, and I'm going to go and I'm going to move our server character, there is jitter on that too. So yeah, we do need to sync it up. I'm going to maybe not arrogantly, but ignorantly move this check to here. And I know that we need to change this to volume 2. And I just want to see if, oh, I hit page down. I just want to see if that quote unquote syncs it up. Gravity volume 2. Oh my God. Okay. Because ultimately what we can do is just move everything from in here to here. Okay. Now that is Control Shift P, and Control Shift B is what builds it. Okay. You're gonna go up there just so that we can see you, and then client, please. Oh, that maybe made it worse. Wow. I mean, yeah, so there's definitely still jitter on enter and exit, so that did not fix that problem. Yeah, even you can see it now. Yep, I think that made it worse. So we're gonna get rid of this. And I think it's about that time in the stream where we pull up documentation. All right. So I'm using the FishNet networking library, and they have some documentation, but I think my biggest complaint with them is that some of the documentation, like the library updates so often that the documentation is not as up to date as it should be. And I wish that they would just let other people write it. Okay. So this is basically what I am basing my player volume trigger off of, is this little script that they have, where they have a network collision, and then we subscribe to on, enter, stay, and exit functions, and then we have them here. So this is their example of an on collision enter, which is just when the overlap starts event. So only play the sound effect when not currently reconciling. If you were to play the sound also during reconciliations, the audio would execute each reconcile, each tick, until the player was no longer reconciling into the collider. And that would be annoying, which is why they include this as an example. Always move or always apply velocity to this player on enter, even if reconciling. Makes sense. For this example, we are pushing away from the other object. Okay. So maybe it should be running there. God. Okay. So I'm trying to think. So what I want to do, and this is going to be kind of jank, because we're just testing things, is that I'm going to move this box into the ground. That way we don't have to also deal with the little half step that we go up. So we just enter and exit the zone, and that's the only jitter that we have to deal with. So it's still going to have jitter, but it's hopefully going to be a little less. And then we're going to move this to here. because if they're okay using the collider object here, then we maybe shouldn't have to worry about desyncs there. Also, while this builds, I have to use the restroom really quick, so I will be back in a minute. All right. Okay, so it built in 3 seconds, which is way faster than I could have used the restroom. Yeah, Z is sleeping hour. I don't know where that guy went, but it's nap time. Okay, so now when we enter, the ground constraint does not get paused. What? So what did I have here? New gravity does not equal temporary. Okay, so anyone who has programmed before might be able to tell what's going on. We set the variable that we want to compare against temporary gravity to temporary gravity. We said these are equal. That's what this line does, and then we check, hey, are they not equal? Okay, so let's reorder this. And then we can rebuild it again. That's funny. So it was just not pausing the ground constraint whatsoever. Okay, so now when we go in, we will actually move up. We still have a little bit of jitter. It's a lot less noticeable on the way in. But one thing that we can do is actually look from the perspective of the client, which is the guy on the bottom. And then if there's a little bit of a jitter on the way in for the other character, which honestly, it's looking really smooth. Like to the point that I can't really tell if there is any on entry. So that's actually cool. So now I have to remind myself, did we move this in entry out? We did not. So entry is still only working like this. It's only happening. Oh. Huh. Okay, so on entry, we only check, we only set it once if we're not reconciling. And on exit, we don't actually check that reconcile condition. So let's add that. Let's also change this. Only run when not reconciling. We have a plague of not checking updates, or not updating comments. I know how to talk, I swear. Okay, and then we can get rid of these. Okay. There we go. Now, I don't know if that is going to be enough to sync it up. It'd actually be super sick if it does. But it'd be interesting. Just really quick, make sure everything is saved. Even if this doesn't fix it for good, because I can't rationalize in my head why this would fix it. But it's possible. I'm gonna push it to get. Okay, so no jitter there. It's definitely still some there. Okay. Come on, can we get like an ounce of it on the way in? I think that there's like the world's... Wait, when can you expect this on Steam? No idea. My goal is sometime in 2025. Because as much as I love working on it, and as much as I do work on it, I am not making enough progress to realistically give you a release date. The Steam page might be some point this year, as long as production on it stays steady. There's like the world's smallest amount of jitter. Like, I don't even think it's really noticeable on the way in. But on the way out, there's definitely some. Okay. Before GTA 6. So, okay. When I, like, actually started working on this, I was like, okay, this is going to be a good time to release. And 2025 is seeming like the year. And then GTA, end of last year, was like, oh, trailer drop sometime 2025. And so I now have the hard part of not only trying to develop this thing, but picking a launch day, which is either before GTA 6, in which I have to cram and then compete with all of the other games trying to launch before GTA 6, or I have to pick a day that's far enough after that people have played the game and it's sort of died down. Or else it's going to get entirely overshadowed. Like, I think that is going to be not game of the year in the sense where, like, critically it's game of the year, but game of the year and, like, everyone is going to be playing that. So, they'll launch it on... Yeah, so I don't actually know how long it took them to get GTA 5 onto PC, but I remember everyone was playing GTA 5. Even before it was on PC, it's like I personally, I would say pretty broke, and I've considered buying a PlayStation right before GTA 5 comes out, just so I can or GTA 6 comes out, just so I can play it. Like, I don't know if that's healthy. I don't think that's a good use of my money, but I want to play it. I had a really good time with GTA 5, so as long as they iterate on the formula a tiny bit, it should be a really good game. But yeah, everyone's trying to compete with it. You still don't have it. Yeah. You still don't have a PS5, I'm assuming. I think, hold on. There's something, I think it was the Ubisoft CEO, Ubisoft GTA 6 comment. Yeah, you don't have a PS5. So I've always been an Xbox kid, which meant that I got bullied for having an Xbox One, and I'm seeing the light now. Okay, so something that this is like super game dev news, but the CEO of Ubisoft says that the GTA 6 launch will be positive for Ubisoft, which I think is like a super backwards way of looking at things. You've seen in the past that each time there's a big release like GTA, more and more people are coming back to the industry. That helps other games sell as well, which I think is fine. We look at this and we're really organizing things around the launch of that game, and we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. We consider it closer to our financial year of 2026 than of 2025. But what we've seen is that generally it's actually positive for the market, and we did a good launch with the launch of GTA 5 first launch and the online game. Each time we were able to generate really good revenue and profit on the games that we launched. So I don't know how the Ubisoft CEO is like, yeah, actually, another company releasing a game, really good for our company. I don't know. I don't know. This seems like shareholder, for lack of a better word, bullshit. We have to say something positive so that it looks good for us. You'd bully me for an Xbox? Honestly, fair. I think the 360 was a really good console. It had, some technical problems in the Red Ring of Death, but the Xbox One was just generally, it was a DVR that could play games. It wasn't like, it was a console. It was great. For what I wanted it for, it was great, but then it's sort of, they needed to put games first, and they've continuously just not really done that. They've just not really done that. I think the only thing that it has over PlayStation is Game Pass. And even then, it's like you don't own the games. So as soon as either the server is shut down or it's not offered anymore or you stop paying for it, you lose access to all of those. So yeah, I think right now PlayStation is the better option, or PC and a Switch. The store near my home, and they used to let kids play PS4 for an hour for like $1. Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly when that was, but like, effectively, like someone, I know there's F grammar. No, I got it. You're good. I know there's a mall near where I live where they have like a gaming, not really like a store, but a place where you can go and just play on consoles or like use VR. And it's sort of like an interesting space because it's like a pseudo arcade where like obviously the machines aren't designed to be used there, but it's like the lounge at a tech company pretty much, where it's just like, here you go, here's all of these things you can play around with, and we'll just charge you to use them. It's an interesting space, and I don't know if they're gonna take off or not, but I'm interested to see where they go. You're from India, so it's a very Indian thing, not very. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the tariffs work, but I'm sure, like, I know a lot of countries put significant import taxes on luxury goods, and unfortunately, game consoles, despite like, if you have an industry that is game development, needing to get these consoles in so that you can make things for them, they're still considered luxury goods, and so the taxes are super high. Like, I know in Turkey, it's almost impossible to get any sort of game console for anywhere near the market rate. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna push this actually before I forget, because I've added a bunch of things, and I don't really want to lose them, but we do gotta work on the jitter. Added specific volume components, and gravity can now be altered. Okay. All right. PS5 is like 6. That's insane. That's a lot of money. Like, that's, yeah. I mean, how much is it to build a computer there? Like something that would be roughly the same spec as a PS5. Do you know? If you don't know, that's okay. Okay. God, I wish there was a way of like checking the tick. There might actually be. Talking about good gaming PC, 2400. Wow. I mean, I don't know. Good gaming PC is like I think that's somewhat subjective. But you can build a really good computer for like $2,000. I also like I've been out of the console game for a while, so I don't really know like what the PS5 is pushing in terms of visuals and frame rates and stuff like that. So I don't really know what a comparable computer is to it at the moment. So I mean, it's definitely something I should look into. Let's see if I can get a tick value out of this. Tick. Let's do that. This is just, it's an internal tick. Oh, actually, hold on. I would love to use this, but I can't actually check. I can't compare the two values because we're gonna reconcile one. You know what? Let's put this here. Debug.log. You're gonna buy a PS5 with your first salary? Yeah, I think that's a super. You have to buy things that are fun for you. you have to spend a little bit of money on yourself, or else like, what's the point of getting money? But yeah, I mean once there's a laundry list of things that I like need to buy when I actually get a job. We'll get to the fun stuff at some point. Okay. You got your basic stuff, so your needs are less for now. Yeah. I mean that's good. That's really good. It's sometimes it's hard to get those basics set up. Actually, I think we only added debug log stuff, so we can start. As long as I don't change any actual like logic, if we're only printing stuff out, I can use the old build. Okay, so now we're gonna see a lot of these messages now. So these are our gravities. I think I wrote that arrow in. Oh, do we not? Do I never go out of one? Where did I put this debug log anyways? It was in exit. Okay. Okay. Oh god. Let's do this again. And I don't even know. Okay, let's see. Ooh, what is the versus? I mean, I guess what's the local tick? Local tick. A tick that is not synchronized. This value will only increment. A current approximate network tick as it is on the server. You're gonna move out after you turn 21. Let's go. As long as that's something that you want to do, let's fucking go. I am probably gonna be doing the opposite, but hopefully only for like a month. Hopefully. I mean, I might not need to. But we'll see. Oh, we didn't even get an out call. Oh, interesting. That's fun. Huh. Huh. Okay, I'm going to actually copy this. And we're going to put this in enter as well. Just because I'm wondering, because this only runs if we're not reconciling, if what's happening is this is getting run and then we are spending the entire time while that we are in this gravity area reconciling, and then this does not get called. I hate to say it, I don't think that's an India thing. I think you can't date when you're living with your parents. I mean, my parents are like a strict, like nothing happens under my roof sort of setup. Okay. I don't actually think that this is gonna help us at all. Oh well. Especially because I changed them both to say out, and now we have that. Yeah, no, you gotta be sneaky. You gotta be sneaky. You find ways to do things. Find creative ways. Okay, and now we can just look for the word out, which never exists. Okay, that's super interesting that we are in fact not running this at all. Interesting. Okay. I'm getting tired of debugging this thing. I feel like I might need a little bit of a break, but I'm not exactly sure what to pivot to yet. Truth prediction is currently reconciling. I wonder if there is a way of adding gravity information into our simulate call. I don't think it's gonna be necessary, but I mean, the other thing I can do is go into the FishNet Discord and I can look up network trigger, enter. We have new talks. Okay, the object colliding must be on the same layer. That's fine. God, I don't know. That explanation somewhere. I'm just reading people's Discord posts, and honestly, there's like no help. Okay. Well, I think I need a little bit of a break, and I honestly don't really know anything. Try ChatGPT. The library got updated a little bit ago. Let's see. Actually, I'm gonna make sure I'm logged in. Yeah, we'll use the quote unquote company account. I don't use ChatGPT for very much. Nerd. One. Okay. Okay. We have ChatGPT. You've been trying. What is Claude? I actually have not heard of that one. Let's see if it knows. Install it, attach the component, set up collision detection. Okay, so that's great. Yeah, create the trigger zone, add the script to the trigger zone, implement those. Is in zone, okay. That's a mono behavior. Is there a way to go from this one? Come on, get the picture, get the picture. Subscribe to the events. Yeah, okay. Got it. Yeah. Do I put the network collision on the player or the volume? They're the ones interacting with the trigger zone, so they don't need that attached. Okay. Using client-side prediction of the network collider components are designed to accurately dispatch callbacks for collisions and triggers. All events have the same name across the component. Yep. What is returned in each will naturally vary. Okay, cool. An example script placed on the player object or script demonstrates subscribing to all three events to play a sound, as well as applying forces to this player. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm gonna look into this Claude AI. Who makes it? Anthropic. So is this just another... I'm assuming this is just like another... It's not OpenAI, but it's... Okay, fine. And how much does it work? It's an AI. Safe, accurate, and secure. Okay. What's the cost to use? 3 pricing plans. Okay, let's... No, I want to know the free plan offers limited use. Okay, I'm going to log in. Let's see... Oh, cool. Okay, I don't want to give him my phone number. You're wondering what is that? Okay, that's fine. I'm okay not knowing what a prediction rigid body is, because we're not actually changing anything for it. Give it a free consigning, object. It's been much more helpful. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't use ChatGPT all too much. I'm sure it would speed up a lot of what I do, but I find it doesn't, like, I can find this sort of setup a lot faster just because I know where the documentation is. And also, like, this was written 23 days ago, so I don't know exactly how much ChatGPT can figure it out. And with that, just because it's so recent, I don't know if any AI can. I don't know if it has to be trained on this stuff or if it can access pages like this. So who knows? It's worth a shot, though. It's always worth a shot. Set today's trigger and detects triggers rather than physical collisions. You can use that. And then you can use those of the attached trigger zone to detect when the objects enter and exit the volume. Okay. There is jitter. The player enters and exits. Just tell me the stuff. No, it's not your bad. It's always worth a shot. The unfortunate reality is I think that some of the stuff that I'm working on or working with may be too new. So jittering or flickering behavior is due to various reasons, including synchronization and network latency. Well, we're running them on the same computer, so I don't think it's network latency. Network interpolation and prediction. Okay. Adjusted network rigid body settings. If your player game objects, it is interesting that it knows about the network rigid body, so it might actually have access to the documentation that I'm looking at. Optimize network traffic. That's, this is something that we're going to do probably within the next week. Server authority. Ensure that the trigger zone interactions are handled consistently by the server to maintain. This helps prevent discrepancies between client and server states. Yeah. Synchronize trigger zone state. Synchronize the state of the trigger zones across all clients. I mean, the good thing is that we do reconcile this gravity, so we're good there. I'm gonna actually just do temp gravity equals. I'm not going to worry about pausing the ground constraint because that is just extra logic. I don't think that's going to change anything, but I'm going to build it on the off chance that it does. Someone's raiding with a party at 2. Hello, irregular human viewers. My name is Frank. I am working on a small little project which is going to be integrated into a larger project. Hey, how's it going? I have been working for a while now on it's a first person sword fighting game, but it's multiplayer, and I implemented a lot of the player and movement netcode wrong, so that's what we've been working on today, is sort of starting from smallest possible unit of of getting our player moving around on the screen over the network, and then slowly unfurling that into a much more complex character controller. So we've already handled stuff like sprinting and moving around and jumping and crouching, and today we're actually implementing some volumes that the player can enter and exit and trying to get gravity to change. So it's super fun, super exciting stuff, but it is a little bit of a coding heavy stream. So kind of unfortunate, but what are you going to do? Also, irregular human, thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. Okay, I think I rebuilt it, but I don't actually recall, and it takes like 3 seconds, so we're just going to do it again. Code. Yeah, it's a pretty code heavy stream. Nothing too complex. Like, I'm not the greatest programmer in the world, but it's a little bit code heavy because we're dealing with like vector math and netcode to try and get things working. All right. So let's see if I can, if there's the problem. That seemed pretty smooth. there was a jitter on the exit of the volume, and that is currently what we're trying to eradicate. Which network solution am I using? I'm using FishNet for Unity. I don't know if it's the best one, but it's sort of what I grasped onto first. Yeah, I know netcode for game objects is actually like pretty good. It's a popular choice. Yeah. I don't know. I've had some people come in here and they're like, "Why are you using FishNet? Like it sucks." But I think that because it's based off of Mirror, it should have enough like auxiliarily. That's a weird word, but it should have enough support from the community to hopefully be maintained for a while. And I was hesitant to use netcode for game objects because I think the last time Unity tried to implement a network solution, they killed it before it even got out of beta. You know, a few people who prefer FishNet over netcode. Yeah. I haven't like gone in depth and done the comparisons. It was mostly just me being hesitant on if Unity was going to support netcode for a long time, or if it was just going to be like a moment in time sort of thing. And I think it's matured a good bit. I wouldn't be opposed to trying it out, but this is just what I've got. So let's see. So on the server host, we actually have a good bit of everything is smooth. I don't know where that sentence was going, but the problem is on our non-host client, and it's pretty smooth on the way in, but on the way out, we do actually get a good amount of jitter. At least it's like one jolt. Once the server sends it the correct information, it's like, oh shit, we gotta correct it. But I'm sort of just like throwing ideas and trying to figure out what is causing that little jolt. Unity often broke their networking stuff in the fast between versions. Yeah, I mean, I've been using Unity for a while as a hobbyist, but I never used their netcode. I think this is the first actual multiplayer game that I'm working on, which is maybe, you know, a pretty large bite to be the first one, but you know, it kind of is what it is. Yeah. No, it was kind of like a 1-2 punch of looking at past Unity networking stuff, and then I'd already been developing this game in Unity, but the actual like multiplayer stuff I hadn't decided. And then that was like last September when they decided to shoot themselves in the foot. So I was like, I'm not going to use something that is maintained by a company that may be going down soon. Okay. God. I'm really not sure how to sort of fix this this trigger sort of situation. Basically, we have one of the features of FishNet is that they support networked collision events, and so this introduces a couple of problems. One is that we could be reconciling, and so that this might get called more than once, and So there's this line from their example, which is what I'm basically copying off of, which just checks, are we reconciling? And if not, then we run this code. And so this should only get run once every time we enter a volume, and this should only get run once every time we exit a volume. And I think we are having some issues syncing up when those events happen. It would suck if you publish a game with Unity netcode for some time and in the future it renders unplayable. Yeah, so that was another thing. I don't think I'm going to actually implement, like I might make the ability for someone to run their own dedicated servers, but I don't think I'm going to buy any for this game, because ultimately, grand scope of stuff, I am making a custom games game. If you ever played Halo Reach or just any of the Halo games and you played custom games in that's effectively what the core of this game is going to be. And so I really just need some sort of peer-to-peer solution that masks everyone's IPs. And so I'm using the Steam Relay for that through FishNet. But I'm not going to be building any dedicated servers. That way, if people want to play the game, I don't have to maintain servers in order to let them play. And I don't really have that, like, I don't think this is gonna ever become some sort of like esport like title, so I don't need to worry as much about cheating. I'm really using client-side prediction as a solution for actually just syncing up player positions. You're gonna go to sleep now. It's 1 a.m. Yeah, I'm really glad you enjoyed the stream. I hope to see you around. It was really fun chatting with you. But go catch some Z's. Go catch some Z's. Or you can just leave coding stream on, and it might get boring enough that that you just fall asleep. I don't know. We'll run it. We'll see. Okay. So I have a couple of ideas that we could do. One is that we sort of like these are changes to our player simulation that like we can set the gravity, and then if we set the gravity again, it doesn't change. So we can call this function multiple times, and the actual state is only going to get changed once. So we could take this code and put it here. Alternatively, and I think this is a really jank solution to really anything, but we could then save being inside and outside of these volumes as inputs, and then send that with our input frame for our prediction call. I don't really want to do that. I think I'm going to try and just copy this out to here. Oh, hey, that's fun. So just for now, we'll copy this out. You're already kind of tired. Well, I hope you had a good stream. Seriously, thank you for rating. And yeah, it was good. Peace. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So let's see. I'm just gonna change this on both. We'll just copy paste the code that exists there. Get rid of that one extra bracket, and we'll just comment out the stuff that's only running once, so it doesn't impact us at all, and we can see if this changes anything. Yeah, I'll see you around, man. Take care. Okay. Okay, let's first make sure that this hasn't changed anything here. And from the looks of it, it hasn't. And now let's get our client going, and let's see. Is there? No. Okay, movement speed's the same. It felt different, and I got really worried for a second. Okay. So there's definitely still some jitter while that happens. But it doesn't seem to break anything unless we run into these stairs. So the only thing that actually is jittery is entering and exiting these sort of states. So I guess running the function multiple times is not going to fix it. I'm not 100% sure what causes the jitter. I think like what I had an issue with a bunch of jump jitter where the client would when they double jump, effectively the client thought that they weren't allowed to, and so it just wouldn't do the jump, and then the jump would run on the server because we send the inputs to get validated, and it'd be like, no, actually you are jumping, and then we'd reconcile and continue from there. But that would cause a jolt from where we were falling down because we thought that we couldn't jump to now we are jumping. And so I think what could be happening is sort of a mismatch of what the client and the server thinks are allowed in the simulation. And so the server knows, like if we look over here as the server, and we go back to the client, everything runs very smoothly on the server. There's no jolt or anything on the server, which indicates that the simulation is actually at least working on one. Now, if we pull back the client, I'm gonna put you there, and then on the server, I'm gonna go here. Let's just space these out so that you can actually see stuff. Then I had them backwards. But we want to look for on the client and move on the server. if we go in, there's a little bit of a jitter, and there's a definite amount of jitter on the exit. You can see it goes up and then it reconciles, but it's pretty clear that there is some amount of a disconnect or a desynchronization between what is allowed on the server and what is allowed on the client. Because the movement is smooth on the server the entire time, and it is actually correcting what is happening on the client. But we got to figure out what exactly is being allowed on the server and not allowed on the client. And that's going to be fun. I'm not 100% sure how to do that. Let's see, debug log. Let's at least check our new and old gravities. We'll have, there we go, boom. And then in order for this to actually read properly, we got to stick it here. Okay. Oh, we're running both. I want to run server here, and then we'll just be the client. Okay. All right. All right, so you can see that there are some points where they change. And these are really what we want to look at, is these periods of time, because these are where we're going to have any sort of actual jitter. I should check, just make sure that these values aren't equal to each other. That is not an equal sign. And then we'll only print out for the times where it's actually changing. Boop. But what's interesting, so we actually get, let's clear this out. So when we change volumes, we'll get a bunch of calls of 1, in which our new gravity is, oh, interesting. Okay, so we just fell, which means that our gravity went from a positive direction to a negative direction. And we are reconciling our new gravity with what was currently active is actually backwards here for 7 ticks, so enough time to be a jitter. And then one time we get the right call, where our new gravity is down and our old gravity was up. So it is interesting that we are getting a bunch of these calls. Now we have not reverted back to the pre-Jank solution setup, so I'm going to do this really quickly. Let's get rid of that. We can save it out. Just a little bit of formatting. Never hurt anyone. Okay. And now we can run that again. We're gonna have to rebuild. Super fun. Build take like 3 seconds. Okay. So here we have our server. I'm gonna make a client on there just so we have someone to spectate should we want to. And then here we go. Here's our client. And let's look at these messages. So we have 1 and 1, 1 and 1. So we are actually changing our gravities multiple times when we enter and exit. That's fun. I mean, the ordering changes. You can see that. Oh, now they're pretty close to synced up. Oh, that one, they were a little apart. Boop. Yeah, so for some reason, our gravity is changing both ways at the same time. Interesting. That's actually really weird. I wonder if debug log. We'll just stick it in the same debug log. Move all of these over here. What properties do we have of this? Strain to ground, hit ground, all the stuff that we have. I don't actually think there's anything that we can use, because I know when we call replicate state, we have a state that we can like look at and check some like networking information. But here we don't have the ability to check like, are we reconciling or not? What we can do is we can check if we're reconciling here. And then we can leave this little server up because we're not actually changing any logic. We're just changing this debug log. Okay. True. So I mean, I guess, are we reconciling? In the reconcile function. Yeah, I think so. I think we're reconciling in that. It is interesting though, now that we only get one message and not two when we enter and exit this gravity. One. We are still getting jitter. Is that happening every time? Sorry, you can't really see this. I used to have it set up like that so that way Jack can see the console. So we are getting debug log messages every time that we actually change the gravity through the reconciliation state. So are we reconciling? True. Yeah, that makes sense. Then we can compare our new and our old gravities. And interestingly, for a while, even though I was just doing this loop, we were only incrementing that top debug log statement. I'm gonna reset all of this, and we're gonna look at them again. Okay, so when we enter, there's two. You can see that our gravity changes both ways, from negative to positive and from positive to negative. And it does each of these once, which makes me wonder, are we calling network exit or collision exit when we enter? That wouldn't be right, would it? And then when we do this, each one gets called again. Yeah, can you give me the whole enchilada? No, where? Increase stick, on reconcile. I know that these are being called from reconcile. Okay. But it's interesting that we are comparing two gravities, and we should only be actually changing once. So I am going to debug.log. First, foremost, are we the owner? And then we want to check. This is just enter. Enter grav, and we can do an exit grav. Okay, so we enter the grav a bunch of times. Do we ever call exit? We never call exit. So the lack of an exit call is probably causing some jitter. Now we really... Oh, hey, we just got an exit call. Interesting. And it's also interesting to note that we don't really have any sort of jitter on the way in. It's just on the way out. And sometimes we aren't getting that exit call. I'm going to write this down. So sometimes exit does not get called. But enter is pretty smooth. I think that was all right. It was a little laggy. When we are doing this reconcile call, it's a little interesting, because that is like the only point in which we would get any sort of jitter. Boom. Okay. I mean, we've been debugging this for a while. Yeah. I think I want to pivot to something else, but I don't really know what to pivot to, because this was sort of the conjoined link between gravity and volumes was actually getting the gravity to change and having it be somewhat synced up. And I think I need to actually take a break in order to let my brain sort of process some of what we've been looking at. So unfortunately, since I don't know what to pivot to, that is where I'm going to end the stream. I appreciate the raid. It definitely got me going for a little bit. I was considering ending the stream like a little bit before the raid. But yeah, it's been good. I hope that everyone who did raid enjoyed the little bit of content that we had. Bye, RD. And yeah, I will see y'all tomorrow, because I'm not going to be able to stream next week, so I'm getting them in this week. See ya. Peace.